But I do think this film definitely had some ideas. I think this concept could have been very, very interesting. It's sort of like a combination of Minority Report and Searching and all that stuff. I think this concept would have been very interesting for this film. What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is OCD Movie Reviews. My name is On The Brinkat, and today I'm going to review the latest AI science fiction, I would say screen thriller film, and that film is Mercy. I'm not going to pronounce the director's name. I'm scared to pronounce his name wrong, but this is coming from the director of movies like Wanted, and this movie stars Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson. In the near future, a detective stands on trial accused of murder of his wife. He has 90 minutes to prove his innocence to an advanced AI judge he once championed before it determines his fate. So we got the latest AI science fiction court drama film, and I gotta say, guys, when I first saw the trailers for Mercy, I'm like, this movie is easily going to be the worst movie of this year. This movie looks absolutely atrocious from the trailers. I see one of the comments in the film saying it looks like War of the Worlds, but much more higher budget. It does look like in that sort of a way. I do think the premise is interesting though, you know? Instead of like, you know, normal people being judges, it takes place with an AI judge. You know, you have 90 minutes to prove your innocence or you'll be burned to death. I think it's a very interesting concept, but the trailers didn't help making this movie look that great. So I went to this movie with very, very low expectations, expecting this movie to be atrocious. Definitely the worst movie of the year. The movie that, yep, it proves that January is going to have some bad movies. And I walked out of Mercy thinking, this is not as bad as I thought it was. I think this movie is just meh, in my opinion. Now, there are positives with this film, absolutely. I do think the two main leads did their best for what they're given. I think Chris Pratt proves to us that he can be a really good, serious actor. And, you know, there are times where Chris Pratt is just meh in the film, but throughout some emotional moments, I think Chris Pratt does a really good job for what he is given in this film. You can tell he's in the film for a paycheck, but he gave it his all for what he has given in the film, and I thought Chris Pratt does a pretty decent performance in the film. But I would say Rebecca Ferguson definitely stole this movie as this AI judge. You're very convinced that she is basically an emotionless AI that just knows about facts more than emotion, and there are times where I feel like Rebecca Ferguson felt very menacing in this film, and I thought she is definitely the best aspect of the film. I think she does a really good job playing this AI judge, basically listening to Chris Pratt trying to prove his innocence for 90 minutes long. And I would say this, throughout the most part, I think the visuals look really good in this film. This is definitely another movie that takes place in one location, but in a way it's sort of a found footage or screen film, you know, like Searching and Missing and all that stuff, because you see a lot of scenes of holograms of security cameras and, you know, live footage from cameras and all that stuff. So those parts are very interesting in the film. I think the visuals when they show in the film, it looks very good in the film. You can tell why this movie is coming out in IMAX 3D, because I would say the 3D would have looked decent in this film. I did see this film in IMAX, I didn't see this film in 3D, but looking at this holograms, I'm like, yeah, that would have looked really good in 3D. But I do think this film definitely had some ideas. I think this concept could have been very, very interesting. It's sort of like a combination of Minority Report and Searching and all that stuff. I think this concept would have been very interesting for this film, and I think for the most part, I was at least engaged with this film for entertainment purposes. The pacing of the film is very well done in this film. I didn't feel bored once throughout the film, so I'll give it props for Mercy. It's at least a little investing and you're getting a little curious of what is going to happen throughout the film. But this film isn't great. This film has a lot of issues, but the film isn't surprisingly terrible. Like, my friend literally represents this film who watched this film with me saying, it's not terrible, but it's not that all good either. I think this is a perfect way to explain Mercy, because the plot of this film, although throughout the most part I was invested throughout it, it is predictable as shit. There's a lot of elements of the film where I'm like, yep, I saw this coming. Yep, I saw this coming. I know exactly how this film's going to end. Yep, it ends in a way that I thought it was going to be. This is definitely one of the most predictable films I've seen in such a long freaking time. But this film has a lot of unexplained questions in this entire film. Like, for instance, since Rebecca Ferguson is an AI judge, wouldn't she know right away that Chris Pratt is innocent? Bringing all those holograms, you know, knowing all the information, wouldn't she know right away? But if she does know right away, of course, it wouldn't be a movie. The movie would end in 10 seconds. Throughout most of the film, it's just Chris Pratt investigating who actually murdered his wife and proving his innocence. So, of course, it needs to be a movie somehow. Which makes this premise kind of like not overthink, thinking, oh yeah, this would have happened. This would actually happen in real life. But of course, it's predictable as shit, so it's a film we just had to go with, which I did go with it. But I can't help overthinking these questions that this film presented. And also, the first 2 acts, they're predictable as shit, but I at least was investing to watch. The third act, though, everything that is revealed, not only it's predictable, it's so obvious, but also the third act, how it's presented. It's one of the worst third acts that I've seen this entire year. Holy crap, the third act in this movie is when this movie actually went from just mediocre, just fine to watch, to actually a pretty bad movie. The third act in this film presents so much shit that's happening that I was just like, I cannot believe they greenlit this. There is literally a car chasing throughout the third act of this film with the visuals that looked so horrendous. And of course the killer reveal in this film, which of course I'm not going to spoil, it's one of the most obvious. You knew exactly right away who the killer is. And when they reveal, I'm like, I'm not shocked. I am not surprised what is happening. I am not surprised who the killer is, so I didn't feel any sort of intention or grilled within it. It's one of those films that's a perfect explanation of films that have ideas, but it isn't thought out or executed as well as I thought. So overall, guys, Mercy is surprisingly not a terrible film. It's definitely not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but at the same time, this movie is just a huge mixed bag. I think the ideas that this film is trying to present is really interesting, and I think the concept alone could have been something interesting. Like I said, it's a mixture between Minority Report and Searching. I thought those aspects could have worked in this film, and for entertainment purposes, it was at least investing, and I do think Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson gave it all what they got. And the rest of the cast of the movie, they're fine for what they're given, but the plot is where the film goes down. It is very predictable. You know exactly what is going to happen throughout the film. For a visual experience film throughout the most part, I think the visuals look really cool. I think the holograms look really good in the film. But like I said, this film is ruined by the plot and this really horrendous third act that literally ends in a way where I'm like, I knew exactly what is going to happen. I think this film would have worked if the writers have a bit more thought of process, thinking, okay, how would this happen if this even happens in the real world? But I walked out of the film not mad about this film, going, oh, this film's atrocious. This movie exceeds my expectations and not in a very good way. I wouldn't say go rush out this film, check it out. If you want to check this film out, I don't think this film will like harm you in some sort of a way, but it's definitely a film that you notice more of the flaws than the positives. I'm absolutely going to give Mercy a meh rating.
I mean, it's alright, like...
So guys, that is my review for Mercy. Let me know what you think of this film in the comments below. Do you like the film, hate the film, or you thought it's okay? Just let me know in the comments below. Make sure you guys follow me on social media links down below. Keep contact with me, and make sure you guys subscribe to my channel. Notify for my latest movie reviews and other movie related content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a nice day.